What is up, guys? Glad you can make it back. Today we'll be discussing one of the greatest tasks involved with surviving in the lethal zone, and that being plague hearts. For those that have been following the past discussions, everything will come full circle. But come grab a seat and we'll talk all about it.
Hey guys, welcome back.
So this new lethal zone has a fair amount to offer in terms of new challenges and the necessity of alternative offensive tactics.
Well, how complicated can it really be, London? As far as I can tell, you run in, damage the heart enough, and escape if need be. What will make this different from your nightmare plague heart guides?
Well, we'll get started from there. Junior? So first we'll cover the changes in the lethal zone, skill and tool prerequisites, then we'll transition to this onion's recommendations for offensive measures. So one of the primary changes that have taken place in the lethal zone is the saturation of plague hearts. One can expect to find anywhere between 30 and 41 plague hearts, which is a 100% or higher difference from the nightmare zone. On top of this, plague hearts have a tendency to cluster themselves. That has been my experience anyway.
I remember when you tested every explosive, incendiary, and throwable in the nightmare zone on plague hearts, and were able to determine how much firepower was required of each weapon. Has plague heart health also increased?
I would say it has immensely. When I took my first swing at a lethal plague heart, the amount of resources required actually surprised me. After a fun time running around, killing ferals, getting blood plague, it took 4 Molotovs, 3 box mines, 2 grenades, 1 pipe bomb, and a partridge in a pear tree. Back in the nightmare zone, the heart would have died after 1 grenade and 3 box mines. So damage is definitely a changed factor. Additionally, after a plague heart is destroyed, the surrounding plague Zeds do not die, and this will be a real pain if there are a few ferals or a juggernaut around. So I quickly learned that taking on plague hearts the old-fashioned way is not only extremely dangerous, but taxing on the already scarce resources available to one's community.
I see what you mean. With the increased saturation of plague hearts, scarcity of resources, greater crafting costs, using a method of attrition is likely not a sustainable means of destroying a heart. So with that in mind, what do you recommend for taking on plague hearts that is both sustainable and effective?
Well, not just sustainable and effective, but also efficient, since plague Zeds will still be alive and ferals will regularly spawn while damaging a plague heart. The process must be done as quickly as possible, or one may have to run away to fight another day. So first, some groundwork must be established. For those that have been following the lethal discussions thus far, this should make sense. First off, I recommend one have the stealth skill, in order to make navigation much easier and minimize any complications. One of the first skills I recommended one start off with is computers, but the specialization I now recommend for the lethal zone is programming. For those that visited while experimenting with explosives in the nightmare zone, it was the drone strikes that dealt the greatest damage, only requiring 1 use. But it will require a little bit more in the lethal zone.
But London, in that experiment, I remember you saying that the purple smoke will draw in a significant amount of Zeds. I only imagine that this will become much more worse in the lethal zone.
Well then, we'll transition into the offensive measures. So before deciding to engage a plague heart, one will need the drone strike ready, a placeable distraction with a delay or activation, and either 2 pipe bombs, 1 thermite, 1 napalm, 2 box mines of any variety, 2 fuel bombs, 3 soda can bombs, or 1 bloater gas. Possibly. I have experimented with each of these, so they are all acceptable. In my example, I will be using a radio and place it approximately 50 meters away. I will then locate my plague heart in a given structure and aim the drone strike as close to the heart from the outside. Once the strike is successful, I will activate my radio, sneak in, and use my other throwables to finish off the heart.
Well, that appears to be quite effective. But what if one does not have a radio? How would other distractions work with this plan?
Technically, any distraction can work. The order of operations just may have to be altered to create a similar outcome. If one, for example, has the placeable fireworks, then the drone strike will have to be used first, while the chosen survivor sneaks away, plants the fireworks, and circles around as the leftover horde from the strike go back toward the distraction. The same thing can be done with throwable firecrackers, or a number of the Independence Day pyro devices.
So that's all fine and dandy, but maybe not as smooth as you think. From what I remember, the drone strike takes time to actually activate before it can be used. Depending on the morale levels, this can take as long as 20 to 30 minutes. Also, what would all of this cost? From what I can gather, it costs 150 units of influence to use the strike and 50 crafting parts to activate.
Well, yes, you bring up a good point. This is why it is important to maintain one's morale levels and have the correct skills and facilities to supplement the costs of battle. The higher one's morale, the faster the activation time. It can take as little as approximately 9 minutes with enthusiastic morale, but the cooldown will always be 30 minutes, unless one has allies or quirks that reduce radio cooldowns. But I don't think this should be a deterrent for the strategy. It would be reckless to blow too many resources taking on consecutive plague hearts. So using this method should create a healthy pause. For those that were present for our last discussion, I go through what I consider to be the ideal base setup and skills to create the foundation for this entire operation. This level of morale becomes easier to attain after destroying a plague heart, though I understand others will have their own means. This is just one Onion's opinion. So anyway, influence is infinite, so that is not much of a worry. The crafting parts are not really going toward anything else since crafting of other incendiaries is rare and supplemented by the recycling skill, looting, maxed out utilities, and the CNC mill that will come in handy when one reaches a surplus of materials. As for the cost of other explosives or incendiaries, they are either purchased from allied enclaves or crafted, but to reasonable quantities. For those of you giving me a funny eye for maxing out one's materials so as to use a CNC mill, take a look at our previous discussion. That might answer your question.
I see. So, are there any other efficient methods that could be used by your guest that may not have the programming skill?
There is another method worth using, though it is a bit more costly and difficult to attain, and that is the tried and true bloater gas and incendiary/explosive. From my experimentation, this is best done with firecrackers or flares, since they burn continuously. With this process, it will take 4 units of bloater gas, but this will require the advanced biochem station and 2 crafting processes of bloater gas since they create 3 at a time. Now, if you ask me, this method is not the most cost-effective since it will take 6 units of plague cure for every crafting process, but it is definitely consistent. Now, there is an alternative that is much more efficient but less consistent, and that is a drone strike mixed with bloater gas. I've had 1 success with its use and 2 blunders. But if the registration is successful, the heart should go down in a single use. This is the fastest method I know of, and I would also say the safest, if it does work. Once one has thrown their drone strike, and the influence is deducted, the bloater gas can be thrown, and the heart should go down in a single use.
That is excellent, London, but I have another question about the use of drone strikes. Sometimes the heart is in a difficult part of a given structure, such as the storage warehouses or a jester's chicken. How have you dealt with these hearts?
I had to experiment a few times with these, frustratingly so, and eventually I was able to work out how to deal with both. With the warehouse, you'll want to aim the drone strike at the back of the building, since the plague heart is just a little bit closer to that end. The front of the warehouse is where you'll find the giant garage door. The back is the opposite end. Aim there, and the heart should be within the radius. For Jester's chicken, the roof is deceiving in how close one can throw the smoke, but even from a distance, the strike should still reach its target. Just to be safe, use bloater gas to extend its range. The only cautionary note I have is to throw your gas at the plague heart, or through a given window, otherwise the drone strike / bloater gas combo will not work, and you'll have to finish off the heart with other items.
Fair enough, London. One more question. In your last experiments with plague hearts in the Nightmare Zone, you busted the myth that plague hearts get stronger as more are defeated. Is this still the same in the Lethal Zone?
As far as I've been able to see, the hearts go down with consistent methods. 1 drone and 2 pipe bombs, 1 drone and 1 bloater gas, or 2 completely burned out fuel bombs with the drone, etc., etc. The plague hearts do not get stronger, and if they do, it is to an inconsequential level. For those who want to see how this myth is busted, I highly recommend you take a look at my plague heart experimentations in the Nightmare Zone.
So for taking on plague hearts, you recommend your guests at least have the programming specialization from computers and stealth to ease complications and engagement. Next, you admonish they use the drone strike, activate a distant distraction, and finish off the heart with the list of throwables you mentioned earlier. As an alternative, one can use a distraction like firecrackers and 4 bloater gas grenades. They can also use bloater gas and a drone strike, but may need very specific circumstances for it to work. Was that everything?
Pretty much, Mascara, thank you. The only other piece of info I have is do not throw your gas too close to a given building. Otherwise, it will either strike the roof, or the overshadow of the roof may prevent the smoke from becoming visible. Lastly, when looting a plague heart, be very careful because it seems that the map sometimes likes to spawn a horde of Zeds while one is in there, and they don't ever seem to end either. So loot quickly and leave, otherwise prepare for an endless battle which could lead to your demise. Otherwise though, that is all this onion.
And this onion.
That is all these onions have to say. Thanks for stopping by, guys, and I'll see you another time.
Bye, guys. Thanks for visiting.